So our next presenter is Loraine Liu. So if you could come up to the front, Loraine. Loraine is doing an applied geology degree. Her project has been supervised by Professor Chris Elders from Petroleum Geology. Unfortunately, Chris has had to quickly run across to the UK, but he may well be watching us on the live stream, depending upon what the time is. Actually, it's 3 a.m. there at the moment, so probably not. But he can watch it in arrears. So Lorraine's presentation is Indian Ocean Tectonics from Detailed Bathymetry Data, and the project was inspired by the big survey of the Indian Ocean that was conducted to try and find the MH370 aircraft that was lost. So over to you, Loraine.
So without further ado, my name is Loraine Liu, and my project is on the Indian Ocean Tectonics from Detailed Bathymetry Data. There's a brief outline of what I'll be presenting today. Whiz through that. Right, purpose of project. One of the main purposes of this project is the fact that this new data released by the recent survey has given us a rare opportunity to look into one of the more unexplored sections of the seafloor. Pretty understudied, with only about 2 or 3 papers released about the area prior to the data release, which was all actually based on poor quality satellite imagery, which was all they had at the time, because a full-scale underwater survey is ridiculously costly, especially if it's not for lucrative purposes. They say that space is man's final frontier, but 99% of our ocean floor are currently unexplored. That's quite crazy if you think about it. With the help of this new data, we can visualize every nook and cranny of this area. Some of the objectives of this project are, of course, the visualization, in particular, using the software Petrel, which is a mapping software regularly used by the oil and gas companies, by Schlumberger, and also to identify different features that make up the seabed and to define criteria, possibly for distinguishing the relative ages and the form of the seamounts within the area. So the survey location is within the southeastern Indian Ocean, a couple thousand of kilometers off the Western Australian coast, as you can see here. It's quite big. It was a pain to download it, as I experienced. But this survey structure is actually conducted due to the unfortunate events of MH370, looking for its debris, answering some questions about that, and it was conducted by the Australian Transports. Yes. Yeah, that's it. Safety Bureau, assisted by Geoscience Australia for any interpretations. There was phase 1 and phase 2 of that project. Phase 1 is the actual bathymetry and backscatter survey, and phase 2 is looking for the actual debris. So we're only interested in phase 1. And all of the data was uploaded onto the National Computational Infrastructure at 2017. So we downloaded that as a text file and imported that into Petrel, the software. And we ended up with actual point cloud data, which is actually, it looks really good zoomed out. But zoom it in, it's just a couple of dots like that, which is not useful. Not very highly detailed, but once we procured a surface using drawing a polygon around the point data area so that it knows the boundaries, the extent of the generation of the surface, and then we end up with a pretty nice picture. It looks much nicer zoomed out, but yeah. One tile takes, it depends on the size, but one tile takes about 4 hours to generate. I've had one generating for 42 hours. So these areas are massive. So once we procured the actual surface, we can turn it into 3D. And this is what we end up with, highly detailed bathymetry surface. And just to point of focus there is the Broken Ridge and Diamantina Trench, which we can see here. The reds are negative 3,000 meters, and then your purples are your 4,500 beneath the sea level. Quite deep areas. You can see some gullies there and features that are important in interpretation of the tectonics in the area. And now that we procured the bathymetry, we wanted to overlay that with backscatter, and we downloaded GTIFF, as you'll see here, because we couldn't actually do it through the software that we wanted to, which was Petrel. We had to do it through QGIS, introduced by Ian right there in the audience. But through there we can do the backscatter, bathymetry, but it's not that good. It's not to the level of detail that we wanted as much as Petrel gave us. But it was the only way that I could actually see the backscatter data. But one thing that QGIS has given me extra is the slope. It actually accentuates any circular features. So I can point out the seamounts much easier rather than just doing guesswork. And from that, I created a Seamount Catalog of the area. It's a bit small, but each one, I got a little bit creative, but the names. I started to run out at the end, like going Seamount Junior, Seamount Senior. I've added coordinations to easily locate it for any future references. Average height, average width, whether it's clear in backscatter, a little bit questionable, or outside the backscatter area. And also some notes about, just geological features, like there's a fault running through it, does it have a crater, and the numbers next to the names is an arbitrary system that I procured. One, very simple, one is like it's gone, like it's eroded into a pancake, and 5 is like a nice point like that one. Very nice. Right. Oh, let's not get there yet. So some difficulties that I faced. We couldn't seem to correctly drape the backscatter within Petrel because there's something wrong. There was something off with the text file. It didn't read correctly into Petrel. If we had more time to correct that, we could have done so, but that's not the case. We had QGIS, which we could do everything on, but it didn't have as high a quality as Petrel. Also having to switch back and forth between softwares to actually create the Seamount Catalog. I needed the slope, and I need to look at Petrel at the same time to see, to just, double correction there. Yeah, took a long time. And in conclusion, if we've got a bathymetry and backscatter combined together in Petrel, we might actually be able to create another separate map that can actually get the what do you call this? Lost the word, long word. Composition of the seafloor. That's it. So we know whether it's basaltic, whether there's any volcanic activity within the area, which can further suggest and interpret the tectonics within that area. Oops. Oh yeah, forgot I did that. Right, that concludes my presentation. I'd like to acknowledge Professor Chris Elders in the UK, and Dr. Hugo Oliver, who couldn't be here, and also Curtin HIVE staff, Daniel especially for assisting me with stuff, and Petrel, QGIS for both the softwares that I was able to use. Thank you very much.